Happy Friday afternoon, everybody. We're gonna play You're the Analyst, but in this episode, I get the role to be the analyst, and I'm gonna go through the example that I gave a few weeks back about a brand that's selling shoes, but then starts selling sweaters and also coats. If you remember the numbers, they were spending $100,000 per each product category on advertising, and the results were different. Practically, return was the biggest on their flagship category, which were the shoes, but there was a small caveat where their lifetime value of the customer was way better if somebody bought a sweater first versus shoes. And then we had coats, which were the latest addition to their product line, and the future was most uncertain with them because the return was low, the immediate return was low, and then the lifetime value was not that high either. But we're gonna see how to spread the the predefined 300,000 from your upper management across these three product categories in order to achieve the best possible result for the brand. So I created these spreadsheets up front, and practically they're taking into account all the inputs that we had. As you can see, the green ones were something that was predefined, whereas the white ones are calculated. So if you had a 4.5 return on ad spend for shoes, means that on each dollar or each pound, which is a default currency here, you're going to make 4.5 when the campaign ends. But the trick is to take into account also the lifetime value, and since sweaters have the highest lifetime value of 5, that means that practically for each dollar you spend on sweater advertising, you get 2 additional dollars in revenue immediately, and then additional 4 in the long run. And since we have also the margin percentage here in a separate row, we can calculate the total profit that's coming up from each one of these product categories. Now let me actually freeze the top row here so we have a better understanding where it is. Yeah, here it is. Okay. So going back, now that we see how these different budgets, for example, I say I put 150,000 here. As you will see, this one is actually calculated because it will take the entire 300,000 and then subtract both of these from it and what's left there for coats. And you can see how the revenue goes away. Let me sum this one up here super fast. And we get the LTV generated revenue and immediate revenue right off the bat when we take a look at the numbers here. So practically the most trivial solution would be from this equation to see which category when gets invested, one pound, dollar, whatever, euro, makes the most money. And trivial solution would be obviously to put everything on sweaters, but you cannot go into your upper management and say, yeah, let's invest everything in sweaters because they're the only ones that make money. Number one, shoes are the flagship product, and number two, they developed some kind of production line to make the other product categories. So practically, you take some of the results when you spend equal amount of money on all three of these and say, okay, if this makes almost half of the money in the entire profit at the bottom line, this category sweaters, let's put half of the budget in them, and then proportionally this one is 3 times bigger than this one, so from what's left, let's put like so this is the half goes in sweaters, and then this is actually the next year, so it's not last year. Let me turn this one off, and then we can say proportionally this one has to be 3 times higher than this, so we're gonna say 120 here and 30,000 in coats, which will make total of this is the total revenue, and the total profit will be 1.5. But there is a difference between the revenue that you're going to make in the short term and then lifetime revenue. Now, if you look at these examples here, I played differently, because if you want to make more money in the short term, you're going to go for the category that's having the biggest margin, which means that you're gonna, not only the return on ad spend is the biggest for shoes, but it's actually I'm sorry, I didn't prepare this one right up, but yeah, we're better off now. So practically for the shoes, not only the return on ad spend is the highest, but the margin is highest as well. So we see the best cash flow short term is if you invest most money in this category. You see it gets, almost 1.2 or 1.13, 14 million back, but the lifetime generated revenue is not that high. Whereas if you go for a long-term strategy, you would go with the product that is having the highest LTV ratio, and then you see the immediate revenue is somewhat smaller, but the lifetime generated revenue is higher than the short term's 1.8 million. Here it says 2.3. And that's how I would go about presenting these metrics to the C-suite to decide if we need more money and where do you want to invest it, or actually get their feedback on whether we want the short-term cash back or something that is looking into the future in a more relaxed way in terms of having an immediate return. But there are also some questions, and it's always about the questions. Being a good analyst is actually asking your surrounding good questions in order to know what kind of results they should expect, and actually to give them the best feedback based on what they expect to achieve from the budget in this case. So these questions begin with, what is the business strategy for coats? Product, market, and the fit, and how do they see it in the future? Because most obviously you can say, let's invest everything here. For example, in sweaters, you can put 300,000 here, and then put 0 in shoes and 0 in coats, and you will actually have the highest LTV generated, because the mathematics are there. But when you go back to the questions side, you will ask, what is the strategy for coats? And not only that, you're going to ask also, how does sales volume reflect on margins? So if you push everything into sweaters, do your probably the cost of goods sold may variate based on the volumes. Another question that I found interesting is, will return on ad spend persist if we change the budget? So, you have probably people in the company who know their market way better than the analysts do. They know it because they have experience. So they can tell you that, trying to sell 3 times as much of a single product in a season compared to the previous year is, you have to have a lot of stars align for that to happen, not only the budget. Because you start, the moment you start pouring money on the budget, you might realize that your addressable market is smaller than you would expect, in your mathematical example. So that's also one question that I would be keen to ask. Will return on ad spend persist if we change the budget, both upway or decrease, both increase or decrease? And also, One last thing that I was lost is, will lifetime value persist if we change the budget? If you press people with higher frequency or more aggressive advertising to buy something from you, will that mean that their lifetime value will remain the same when compared to people who bought almost organically? Like if they split, those who split 50-50 between organic and paid ads in terms of touch points before the purchase decision, will you actually have the same type of customers in the long run? That's about it. My take on Youre the Analyst. Now, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, or I'd like you to think about it, at least to just have like a mental exercise, and see you soon in a new episode. Once again, thanks Jason Thompson for giving this great idea of somewhat geeky fun for the weekends for people who like to look at the numbers and analyze them. Bye.